Welcome back, everybody, to Classico East, the world's worst channel for uploading videos. We keep going. Eventually, we'll get there, and we'll be prime time. We'll be trending. But for now, you got to put up with this quality of stream and this quality of podcast. But as always, the content is always good. So today, the topic is going to be COVID-19 and kind of its impact on football across Asia. So we'll be discussing East Zone and West Zone broadly, and kind of looking at all the different leagues, who's coming back, who's not coming back, and all the different ways that leagues have come up with trying to sort out football, because there are so many different ways that you can look at this, so many different ways that you can try and bring football back, to try and justify bringing football back. So I'll be covering the East Zone, and my friend here, Sajad, is going to be covering the West Zone. What do you want to jump into first, Sajad? Do you want to do East or West?
Well, we're gonna start with the East Zone. You're gonna take us through that. But yeah, thank you very much for explaining the video. Yeah, but I don't want this. When I was looking at the data, we both agreed with the fact that there is not necessarily a clear. What? How am I gonna explain? Decisions vary depending on countries. In some countries, the government make the decision in regards to when football is coming back. In other countries, the league itself is powerful enough. For example, in Britain, in England, uh, I want us to be able to sort of put all of these data together when we're going through every country, sort of get to a point where we can sort of give our own conclusion on what is the best thing to do. Because interestingly, for those who don't know, we tried to make an attempt to record this video once, but it didn't come out well. But it's actually a good thing, because I have managed to watch additional videos on other YouTubers' takes on the matter, and I learned more in compared to our first attempt. It looks like this second attempt is not going to be any better. you cool place where you are. You're in a lab making robots. But yeah, the
Yeah,
resolution
this
is
is my COVID-19 lab where I'm trying to find a way to bring football back.
you
Because at the
gotta
minute, it's not happening in a lot of places, and we need to bring it back, make football great again. So let's jump straight into the East Zone
yeah, making
and look at the
some
ways that
vaccines
different
over there.
countries out there are dealing with the COVID-19 in relationship to football.
Okay.
So let's start with the big one, shall we? Let's start with China.
Yeah, you're gonna
Where
you're
it's
gonna
back.
explain. Yeah. Go on. Yeah, kick things off with China also.
Yeah, so things are moving forward over in the East Zone. So in China, they announced back on the 16th of April, about 2 weeks ago now, that some clubs are back in training in China for the Super League. A lot of those clubs, actually, their squads flew to Europe to train while the COVID-19 pandemic was happening in China before it reached anywhere else. And then it got spread across Europe and obviously the world. And a lot of those clubs were then locked down in Europe, stuck for even longer. Then when they returned to China, they had to do 3 weeks quarantine before they were allowed back to their cities. So it looks like we're going to be heading for a mid-July season return. That's what's coming out of Guangzhou. RNF, the chairman, came out and said that for mid-July. But I think a really good kind of news story, like a good feel-good factor here when there's no football going on, was Wuhan Zhou, obviously Wuhan where the epidemic started. Wuhan Zhou, Chinese Super League team, returned home after 3 months in Europe, and home fans lined the platform. So that must have been a really feel-good moment for the fans and for the club after spending 3 months on the other side of the world to come home and see all your fans still there believing in your club.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine that was kind of emotional, to be honest. And they finished sixth last year, so hopefully they'll be doing quite well this year. Put a feel good vibe back into Wuhan. Weirdly, the only player that was announced to have COVID-19 in the Chinese Super League was Marouane Fellaini. I don't know how he managed it, and how no one else managed it, but I think Marouane Fellaini has some questions to answer about that.
Okay, cool. So everything is. Let me cut to myself. Yeah, everything is coming back in China, right? To
It's creeping along. It's getting there. Like I say, they're all back in training. Looks like mid-July, so probably another sort of 5-6 weeks before you get some games. But it looks like everything is coming back together. Now, I will say, and we're going to cover this on the next episode because we're going to do a transfer special, is the impact financially that COVID-19's had. Because in China specifically, there's a massive wage cap that's coming in. So we'll talk about that in more detail coming up. But that might really mess up squads and who's within the squads for the remainder of the season.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, we're gonna do that. Okay, cool. It's interesting, how China's take on the matter is. They've done a lot of, yeah. It's there's. I tried to explain the challenge in another video in which we also did not manage to upload. It's lots of complications. No one knows how to measure some compensations, you know, in regards to sponsorships, clubs. It's very tough, especially in Europe, because TV rights is everyone needs football to come back, and the fact that it's not what is going on. The fact that football is no longer taking place, they're losing money. Clubs are losing money. No one knows how to measure the compensation. Who is going to pay? The longer you delay football, the more financial damage there is for both clubs and those who fund the clubs.
Yeah, and there's
And
always the danger clubs don't survive this as
yeah,
well.
that's another thing.
Clubs
Yeah,
financially don't, because there's no cash flow, and
yeah,
and football clubs, even football clubs outside of the big European leagues and Premier League where the money's ridiculous, are still expensive things to. They're still really expensive businesses.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
especially the wages, even worldwide. So how China has been dealing with it, I think they have taken it slowly, but they have been moving forward. So I don't think we can judge them yet. And I think obviously, as we'll talk about in the next episode, how transfers come into play, that's a little bit unfair. But I think they're doing the right thing by getting everyone training and ready to play.
Okay, that's good. Another thing I was going to add is, you are not certain by delaying football that you're increasing the safety rates of other people. That's another thing. So if you resume the season, no one knows whether people might get infected anyway. Players might get infected anyway off season because they're going out. It's not going to guarantee their safety, but you might just go ahead with the season and at least try and sort of organize the games without the spectators. I think it's the best solution anyway. That's just my take on it. But yeah, that's the new detail, because you have to compare every country to their stats, to their daily stats. If it's coming down, I suppose it's safe. China, I think, in regards to what I saw, it is pretty good to bring its football back, not just football.
Yeah, so
But then
it is
again,
dropping significantly. It's
always,
dropping significantly out there. I know, like, a lot of the cities have opened up again and work has resumed. It's just about mass gatherings,
hmm,
and then it's also about being able to test the players between games. Because to say that everyone is safe and ready to play on one fixture doesn't mean it's true on another one unless you test them again.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I think that's the key. That's the key bit that's going to come in. But I
Okay.
haven't seen apart from Korea, I haven't seen any other countries that are really talking about testing too much. But let's move on to Japan.
Well, Bundesliga is there, but yeah, I'm not going to talk about that. You are correct. Let's go. Let's move on to Japan, and Japan is actually an interesting case because they are when I was because they do the league the other way around you know uh, in terms of the transfers, right? They were 1 week into their season, so there is not necessarily the case of what we're looking at in Premier League and everywhere else in in the world, where there is sort of a moral loss if you cancel the leagues in everywhere else. For instance, in Premier League, you're gonna think, well, all the teams they have invested, all these clubs they've invested money, they've worked hard for where they are, and they were looking forward to do more potentially, obviously with the games coming on. But you can't, if you cancel the games, who's gonna be responsible for all the hard work that they put in already? But in Japan, that's necessarily the case, and they can they have the easiest sort of way of declaring their season null and void without anyone criticizing them, which is not the case anyway. Because anywhere else in the world, you're at least 2/3 into the season, right? And there is that question of, what about everything that we already done?
Yeah, I mean, they're easily in a position where they could declare it null and void, although it's almost overkill in their case to do that. It's one game. So they could easily either restart or just carry on. They're only a game in. It wouldn't have it barely a factor. The one game. Yeah, as I was saying, it's kind of bizarre. There's like mixed signals coming out of Japan. So the Japan Times reported that the J League wasn't committed to a return date, but the chairman Mitsuru Murai, he's come out and said May the 9th, which is not too far away. But I really doubt that's realistic. I haven't seen any significant news coming out, although I don't speak or read Japanese, so I'm basing it on an English language Japanese websites. So if anyone out there does know a little bit more detail than that, perhaps that has changed, but I don't know, less than a week from recording this, that they're going to come back to football. Especially if you look like places like Tokyo and Osaka, the data around COVID-19 is still on the up. So there are regions of Japan where it's really low or it's dropping quite fast. But those two areas where a lot of the population lives, a lot of clubs have to play, still on the rise. So you'd have to start getting into that kind of regional argument of, do we use neutral venues? How does that impact the league? Do we do that for the whole season? Do we do that for some of the season? Again, it goes back to the finances, the home crowd factor.
Sorry.
What they have confirmed. Yes, what are you going to say?
Yeah, you cut off for a second. If you could just repeat your last sentence. You cut off for a period.
Oh, all right. Yes, yeah, they're just basically deciding around whether to do it regionally. For some regions of Japan, the rates of COVID-19 are a lot lower. But if you play on neutral grounds, that impacts finances, and there's no fans. So there's a lot of what ifs around that still. But they have made a few confirmations. So they are changing the format of the season. There will not be promotions or relegations for the upcoming season. The J League has offered a big financial package to its clubs. Some clubs are reeling. And in-game, I'm not sure why they've done this. I don't see how this relates directly to COVID-19. They've introduced 3 breaks during the game. So the game was split into 3 sectors or sections for the upcoming season. And every game will have 5 substitutions instead of 3. I don't really see how that fixes things. I don't know about you, but that to me is really strange.
That is something you just didn't have to do. It was just not necessary. But then again, Asia, because full of decisions like
it's not as if I'm feeling a bit unwell, I need to sit down, and then you get an extra substitution. It's, well, if you're feeling a bit unwell, you've probably got COVID-19, and none of us should be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So I don't see how you can justify 5 substitutions. And I don't see the point of 3 breaks. It's a bit of a strange one. I don't quite understand it. But yeah, that's what they've confirmed so far. Supposedly coming back within a week. But I've seen no preseason games there. I've seen no other confirmation apart from in that Japan Times article. So Japan is a wait and see, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there's no way you justify what they have done. There is no possible way that you can explain their decisions. But yeah, that's what makes Asia interesting. All these wild, weird, outrageous decisions. Yeah, everyone's got something in the bag. AFC, but something interesting you said was that is also a choice on the table where you pick a neutral ground. I remember when AFC was trying to come up with a solution to resume Champions League, and I suppose AFC Cup, they picked Qatar as the host country. But they already did announce that if that would be the plan, we're going to go to Qatar and all the group stage games will be taking place there. But I don't think it will get to that because season the actual national seasons in Asia's top countries, at least as far as I'm aware, in the West Zone, uh, they are already slowly coming back. Uh, I'm gonna explain it later on in the video. Again, some surprising stuff coming along, but that was one of the choices, neutral ground. But the problem with that is we are 3 weeks into the Champions League. This is another complication. We are 3 weeks into the Champions League, in which clubs have either played one home game, two away, or two home game, one away. Right? It's not beyond that. But
Yeah.
they were looking forward to their return leg at their own home ground. But they have to instead play that in a neutral ground, which is just not fair, from their perspective. So I don't see how, unless you uh, get rid of everything. You just resume the club the the group stage phase of the competition, World Cup style. Where whatever how much, no matter how many games you've won or lost, zero, be back to nothing again. You're gonna be have to play 3 games, just like World Cup. Collect your 4 or 5 points to qualify for the next round, and then as soon as this is over, away we go. Okay. Uh, but yeah, I don't see
Yeah,
how.
the only other way of just thinking about this is that this is a bit more radical, that you could remove the tables and turn it into a full cup and do it by round.
Nah, dude, I'm not a fan of that.
I'm not a fan of it, but it is a solution in which there are less games, so you could get the competition across the line.
No, I think the sensible thing to do is to resume the season without the spectators everywhere, not necessarily just Japan or China. Football can carry on. People
Yeah,
need it, for your mental well-being. It's amazing how football fans we are junkies. We are actually addicted.
yeah,
We
it is
need,
true.
yeah. It's mad. It's crazy how even speaking for myself, how unaware you are of how attached you are to football, and once it's gone, you're literally gonna struggle in life. It's mental, but
Yeah, the thing is,
that's where we
like
are.
you and me, we talk all the time about football, and we're probably a bit more football hipsters than a lot of people. We watch a lot of football from around the world.
Definitely the case with
Uh,
you. This.
yeah, like I know probably more than I should about football.
Yeah, you do.
I spend too much time on it, but it is something I love. It's something a lot of people love, whether it's just their club or the game in general, or they've got kids that play it. They're into grassroots football, the local clubs. But it is an important religion. It's a church for a lot of people. It's a identity. Um, but there is some positive news. If we talk about South Korea
Yeah,
now,
we
South
can.
Korea, their league actually starts on the 8th of May. They are returning from football. They've had a real drop in cases. They really controlled the curve over there. And they've had several days now with no new cases. So they're doing really strong.
That's in 5 days' time. Some football
Um,
is coming
so,
back.
yeah, 5 days' time, it's back on. Behind closed doors, but it is back on.
Yeah.
As of 23rd of April, so they were already. And there was actually a actual practice match that went ahead. You had the Suwon Blue Wings versus Seoul Eland, which is like a K2 division team. And then you had Australia international Adam Taggart that scored the goal. So I think he is the first guy to score a goal in a game in Asia in about 2 months. They did have 2 months off, but the way that they're getting around that is that they're shortening the league. So shortening the season. So usually it's 33 games, and they're now down to a 27-game season. So that will be 12 teams in the K-League, 22 home and away games, and then the table will split in two, and they'll do a 5-game mini-league. And that's kind of like in Scotland, you get that kind of thing where they split the table, and then the top half and the bottom half play amongst themselves. So that's a proven model to play.
Is that the MLS model as well? It's similar, right? To
MLS is similar with East and West rather than
No,
like a
no,
first
but
and
in terms
second.
of formats in which you're split in two groups and then
Kind of,
the
because
top.
they do it with a playoff. So the top half of the East zone, half the West zone, play off with each other to get towards the MLS Cup.
Yeah.
So it's similar. It's a similar sort of thing. Um,
No, dude.
Interestingly
Not
though,
good. Not good. I don't wanna hear it. That's enough. That's enough from South Korea moving. No, but no.
but it's where football's back. But it's where football's back. And so
Dude. But how would that work though? That's just how would that work?
it
How?
works. There's quite a few leagues that do that now.
Where
Like I say, in
at
Scotland,
what stage did they pause the season? Do you know?
they hadn't started.
Oh right.
So
Okay.
it's a delayed start to their season,
All
and
right.
they've
So
just shortened the number of games in it. So they had quite an easy way of getting around it,
of course, yeah.
Um, the one thing I do want to bring up though, just around South Korea before we move on, is TV rights,
Okay.
because they are the first ones back, and a lot of clubs and a lot of leagues are looking for money, and a lot of TV broadcasters in sports and digital broadcasters in sports are looking for money. South Korea and the K League have just sold their product to absolutely everybody. So China, Hong Kong, Croatia, Germany, United States, Australia, France, Italy, they're all going to be showing K League games as of next week. Even Copa 90 is going to be showing K League games on its website.
Mate.
So they are going to get huge money, and the K League's actually going to get a lot of exposure abroad and in Europe and America where it wouldn't usually get it. So I actually expect there to be a lot of a growing fan base for Korean football. It might become the new kind of hipster league in Europe to follow.
Yeah, as you know, just to add insult to everyone's loss, whether it's someone you love or financially, definitely financially, everyone, we're all losing money. But in the case of South Korea, they are gaining money, popularity, all that stuff. It just goes to show how weird. But yeah, I think, yeah, Japan could have done similar stuff, right? But it's on them.
Yeah, Korea handled it better than Japan,
Yeah.
um, and have really done business well to get themselves back on track to play football. And they're all going to make money from broadcast rights that they've lost on ticket sales. So I don't know if they'll make more money this year. I think they'll lose money, and then next year, because of the broadcast rights and the ticket sales, that will be when Korean clubs can really dip into the international market and get some players that they wouldn't usually get, maybe players that might have previously only looked at China for a big cash day might turn heads and look at Korea, and you might see some bigger players going over there.
But I imagine they are making more money because, you know, in a clubs finances are usually funded through TV rights. Like more than usually the rate is 50 to 60%, and then ticketing, commercial contracts, sponsorships, and shirts and everything else is like within the remaining 40%. It's the TV right that actually literally funds a club on a.
Mm.
So yeah, I think yeah they will be earning more money than ever, which is just something
But it's good. It's good for the
to know.
Korean league.
It is, yeah. I
Um,
would be thrilled if I was a Korean club owner. But that's good. So football is coming back. At least we're gonna have some football back in 5 days. Am I correct? Yeah, 5 days time, right? 5 days time. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. I will be watching as well. I'm dying to see some live action. I know I had the choice of Belarusian football, but that was just not good enough, right?
I gave it a go, but I felt bad. There's something morally wrong about watching it. Not because it's Belarusian, just because it's COVID-19 going on. They're kind of ignoring it. But yeah, I'm glad that Asian football's coming back. And obviously K League first. I'm not even going to bother covering the rest of the East Zone. A League is not happening for the
Yeah.
foreseeable. The two top tiers of Indian football are not happening. Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, it's not happening. So that's basically it. But let's watch the K League. Let's get into that. Back everyone in South Korea watching the games, and see where it goes. Maybe in a few weeks.
Yeah, that would
You never
be.
know. We might get some more news. So let's move on to the West Zone, because obviously you've been looking into the West Zone
Yeah.
and what's happening.
Invest. You know, because of the structure of football in West Asia, what I'm about to say is completely different to what you say. Yeah, let me just, yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, of course we're not gonna go through every league. We just pick the top flight leagues in Asia to talk about. Obviously, the ones that really matter. Yeah, I'm sorry to Malaysian, Singaporean league owners, but yeah, that's just. Have they actually said anything? I mean, I know we have no information to sort of predict when they are coming back, or have they said anything that you know? I'm talking about the A League, Australia. Have they actually been saying what they have in mind at least, or have they got any plans?
I can't find any. I mean, I tried looking up some like Australian sports news outlets and the A League
Okay.
website and just you know,
Okay. Cool.
checking some of the social media for some of the club owners. Nothing. It just says the suspension is continuing.
Okay. At least we know that one. Cool. No, that's good. That's good enough. I'm just gonna kick things off with, of course, Iran. Iran, actually, to what I know now, let me check the time. Let me give you an exact date because now we are at this stage where we know for sure the football is coming back in 3 weeks, 3 weeks and 2 days. That's 23 days time. Iranian football is gonna resume. Clubs are already in training. Well, at least they've been given advice. They've been giving the approval from the government to resume training in their training grounds, and obviously you need that 2 week, right? That was another thing. You need to have at least 2 weeks time to resume the season. So one of the challenges that existed uh, for for leagues, for league owners to resume the season, for executives to resume the season, it was, how much time are you going to give, are you going to allow clubs to train beforehand, because obviously they've been away for so long, and individual training is just not good enough for for team
Yeah,
performance on the
that's the
pitch.
other thing. Individual training is essentially what you do while you're on holiday. Then you do pre-season. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? You might take 2 weeks out just to let your muscles recover, but then you get back onto your personal training regimens. So what do you? Is there any announcements around pre-season games or closed door games before
Well,
league
Iran.
games, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, no. Oh shit! I ruined your video for a second. Iran suspended, sort of temporarily suspended the season on week 21st, and so you have like, and it's a league of 16 teams, so 9 weeks remaining, 9 weeks to play. There was no talk of, yeah, preseason to for clubs to get in form and all that stuff, but you just have you're given approval to hit the training as a group, hit the training grounds, and prepare for the dates in which you will have, I'll say the Jesus Christ calendar. Uh, that would be the
Known as
that would
forever.
be 26th of May. 26th of May, Iran football is coming back. Iranian top division football is coming back.
Yeah, because at 21 weeks in,
Yeah.
similar sort of time frame to the European leagues, it's a much more difficult thing to decide on how do you just end it and declare winners? Do you declare it null and void? Do you decide
There's problems with
that
every
instead
choice.
of
Yeah. There's
yeah
problem with every. In the case of Iran and European leagues, there are morale and financial problems with either decision you make. But that's not what they've done. So yeah, they have, according to this day that we have given, they have more than what that's yeah a month plus 5 days to organize those remaining 9 weeks. So
yeah
I think that would be twice, 2 match days in a week. That should do it, right?
yeah, and it was actually a pretty good season last time I saw. There was like, well, I remember the Persepolis were pretty much on top. They win. What is that? 13 titles, and then you've got like Sepahan, Estigal, and tractor that were pretty much running for that second spot. But a few teams below them aren't so far behind.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. So there is Persepolis are leading by 10 points. Uh, and Esteghlal, I believe they are fourth, but with a game in hand. So they have played 20 games. But yeah, let's not. That's where the league is. Yeah, you are correct. Lots of games to be played. You can't declare the
Yeah.
champion. It's not like Premier League, where Liverpool they just run with it. But
Yeah, if you declare Liverpool winners, people would kind of, they'd be a little bit, what's the word, disgruntled, but they wouldn't like kick off.
well,
You just declared Persepolis the winners at this point.
that's what happened in France, didn't it? Where
Yeah, PSG.
yeah, they announced PSG as a champion, and the remaining whatever allocation they had for the following season, Champions League, and then I know Leon didn't submitted a formal complaint to the league. They didn't like that decision, but of course we all gonna know that. With Liverpool, you sort of can because they only need 2 more games to win. But not every league is in the same situation as Premier League. But yeah, nothing. Yeah, in regards to the cup, nothing has been announced. So I think the trouble is just finish the season, just finish the league. Don't worry about the cup. No one has said anything about the cup in Iran. It is in the semi-final stage plus 1 game from the quarterfinal, which needs to be organized between Sepahan and Esteghlal. I was really looking forward to that game, but hasn't happened yet. Moving on to Saudi Arabia, which is also a league of 16 teams.
Yeah, I remember the title race was a lot closer in Saudi Arabia. You had like Al Hilal at the top on like 50, 51 points, and then Al Nassr was probably like 7-8 points behind them. So still a gap, but a little closer than in Iran. So even more reason to try and get them across the line because they were about the same amount the way through the season, weren't they?
But yeah, you're absolutely correct. But they also want to resume the season. I think but the challenge is this: those who criticize resuming the season always try and make an argument by saying, "Listen, clubs are not private, just like they are in Europe. They're not the financial flow in in West Asian leagues. You can't even compare it to European football or even East Asia because clubs usually on paper they belong to the government and or they have owners within the royal family of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Emirates, whatever it is. So you're not necessarily clubs are not necessarily they are losing money, but they sort of own the league. They can do whatever they want. So
yeah, and
it's
I think in Europe the difference is that it's a little bit behind closed doors. Real Madrid is obviously Spanish government's club. Premier League is obviously a big deal to the British government because they're trying to get that on no matter what. But in Asia, like you say, a lot of the West Zone, a lot of the clubs are directly owned by the government, or the leagues are directly owned by the government. So the same, they carry on when.
Yeah, that's pretty much one of the most important things is TV rights. There is not really such thing as TV rights in West Asia. Television companies owned by the government, clubs owned by the government, they just broadcast the games. No one really says anything. It's just it's not as complicated as, and that's obviously not good for the clubs because obviously they want to earn money. But it's all one pocket. It's all one pocket.
Because from a business point of view, you look at the way K-League have done their business and the way they're getting their cash flow.
Yeah, of course.
It would have been good to see that same thing happen in Saudi Arabia or Iran or the Emirates or something, just to see like a lot of money come in that way.
But just to go back to Saudi Arabia, yeah, they're determined to resume the season. But you were correct. Al Hilal are leading their league, the Saudi top division league, by 6 points above Al Nassr. Yeah, and the other weird decision that I sort of mentioned earlier in the video is the day that they have announced. They are planning to bring football back in September, which is weird because how would that it's going to create, this should have created complications in a normal world, uh, in terms of player contracts and sponsorships. But I don't know how they're going to handle that. Yeah, in August. Sorry, I said September. August. In August, they're going to. But that doesn't change anything. It's just August is the seventh month, right? In the year, and that's,
Yeah,
yeah. We should be 1 week, 1 month in the following season by that time. That's like,
the only reason I can see why you would do that is that you want your league season to align to the European calendar for the transfer windows, and maybe for like getting European citizens to watch the football, because in the summer a lot of European fans do switch off and do other things because they don't think it's on. So I'm thinking like maybe they're trying to do it from like a marketing point of view.
well, yeah. That was another thing. Because they haven't said anything officially. These information that I said, it's just people in Saudi media guessing, because obviously they have contacts and they talk to people. That's what they're predicting, in regards to what league executives are trying to do. So the plan is August, but they haven't said anything yet, because the reason was they wanted to wait to see what AFC is doing for the Champions League, so they could act according to what AFC is doing, so they can protect their clubs, better than any other country in the West Zone, in the Champions
Basically
League.
nothing happening
Yeah,
in Saudi Arabia
pretty
for the
much.
foreseeable.
But what we have is August, potentially. We don't even have a date.
Yeah.
Moving on to Emirates, a league of 14 teams, right? Which is weird, but I'll explain that later. They paused their season on the 19th week. So again, 7 weeks left for season to end. Well, I have written something. You found it very insulting on our last sort of take, but I was correct. On a normal day in Emirati football, there's not much of an attendance, is there?
Yeah, I'm not saying there's a huge fan base, but I am saying that there is a loyal fan base, and there is some very old clubs: Al Ahly, Al Ain, Al Jazeera, Al Wahda. That's either culturally there's just not the interest in it, or they should shift away from having massive stadiums that are empty to just accepting that they've got a smaller fan base and play in smaller stadiums where people will be together more, and you create that fan base.
All I'm saying,
what are they doing around the return of football? Because I haven't really
yeah,
seen anything.
their target month is September. The problematic part of when you're gonna bring football back is there is a deadline. Basically, you gotta be able to finish the season by 31st of June, because that's when transfer window opens, right?
Yeah.
And you plan for the following season according to that. So the sooner you finish the season according to that day, the less financial damage there is, right? But I don't understand these days. August, September. I mean, I really don't get September. I don't know how would that work. You know, I think what they're doing is they're sacrificing the following season. That's just me guessing. And they're waiting for everything. But the other problem I had with UAE officials, Emirates is not even that bad in terms of, if you look at their stats, it's not necessarily, you don't see it anywhere. They're not as bad as Brazil, Russia, Britain. They can pretty much resume the season behind closed doors right now.
You have to ask those questions about why are they doing it like that. Because if you don't have that higher level of cases, then it is a business decision to do it later on. It's not about, you're doing it for some sort of business reason, some money reason. So I think the UAE and Saudi Arabia, both of them are trying to align themselves to the European market, and they dip into the European market. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, but that's what it seems like to me.
Okay, but I don't know. I haven't picked up anything, but later on there will be they might have players raging because, to what I know, players in in the Emirati top division, they all managed to come to terms to reduce their wages by 40%, which is a huge margin, which is a huge difference, right? I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Obviously, this can carry on, but for how long? I'm not sure if player would want to be on 40% less wages for how many months?
that's
Three, four,
true. And
five
it's the
months.
same thing, like I said, in China. There's a massive pay cut there, and I think in those sorts of situations, you're going to see an exodus of those big players, like a return of big international players returning to Europe.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how much FIFA can do to protect their contracts or help their clubs. It's just nothing that has never happened before. This is the first uh, sort of first time football is facing a challenge as such. Uh, right now. But that's it. That's all I have for Emirates. Moving on to Qatar. I was gonna say this. A league of 12 clubs. Isn't that is that normal? You you did you did say Scotland is doing this
Uh,
similar stuff, but to what I know, you gotta be able. You have to play 30 games. All the teams in your top division, they must play 30 games to be able to say this is a professional contract, this is a professional league. You are required minimum 30 games for all the clubs across the league. But they have the league of 12 teams, and so 22 games for every. This just they're far off. Anyway, so 5 weeks, yeah, less than in compared to Emirates and Saudi Arabia and Iran. They they have the easiest job to finish their season, but they have not done anything yet. But it's interesting to see what Qatar is going to do anyway, because as I said earlier, they've been selected as a potential host for Champions League group stage games if AFC decides to go with that, and
yeah, that makes sense because obviously they've got all the stadiums ready
yeah,
to do that. And so if you're going to do that kind of single location event, that kind of is the standout one. I would also argue that out of kind of fairness, maybe give it to Japan just because where they've lost the Olympics, pretty much that's going to be pretty much confirmed. Um,
yeah, it is
they've lost
confirmed.
a lot. Yeah, so that is a lot of money lost that the government has spent there, and a big opportunity for them. So they're all set up and ready to go for big events. Their stadiums might as well do it for the AFC Champions League.
For the interest of the clubs on the East Zone, less
Mm,
traveling, less chance of injuries, fatigue, all that stuff. But
yeah,
that's all down to. I don't have a day for. Uh, I don't have like a suggested plan from the Qatari uh, league executives, but they have said they're determined to finish the season in an article dated to a month ago. But I don't know when they're gonna do it and how they're gonna do it. That's
it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's like Iran and South Korea are coming back, but pretty much everyone else is in this kind of pre-season that will last forever. um,
they're very vague. They're waiting for their confederations to see how they react. And another
yeah,
explanation could be,
maybe
what
that.
you said. Yeah, to align their games with the European equivalent.
What do you think overall, though? Like, do you think a lot of the leagues are taking the right approaches? Do you feel like they've
I
waited too
think,
long? Do you feel like
yeah,
some leagues are not waiting long enough?
I think, I was listening to True Jordy's video about Premier League. I know it's about Premier League, but he said some interesting stuff. You need to have solid data to make the argument uh, that suggests you're opposing football but for sure, that's going to save lives and help the medical, NHS in term, speaking from a previous season,
Yeah,
your medical staff. But you just don't know that. Suspending the league. Well, what you do know for sure is that it's causing maximum financial damage to football clubs, and we're not just talking, the ones in the top tier.
yeah,
There are. He said EFL League 1 and 2, most of the clubs in those leagues will go to bankruptcy within 5 months. They will run out of all, all their savings or everything.
yeah. And
And
that's what I was saying. Like it's a very, I mean, especially in England, and probably the same in like Germany, because they've got a strong
yeah,
second division, Spain, and France. There's a lot of money, even when you go down a division, down 2 or 3 divisions in some countries. And I think the financial model of football clubs has been unsustainable for a very long time. And there
yeah.
has to be a long-term change in the way football clubs behave. But I do agree with that point. If they are going to survive this, you've got to move away from this maximum negative impact. You've got to move to some point where let a football club do something, even if it's behind closed doors. Because if it's
Yeah.
behind closed doors, at least there's broadcasting rights, and then at least you've got merchandise sales back because you can ship orders, and then you might be able to do some transfer business and create a bit of cash flow and save your clubs.
It's just
Because
less damage, isn't it? It's less financial
yeah,
damage, isn't it? You can
there,
sort of
there is
minimize it.
there's definitely going to be clubs that don't survive this. They have to be reformed. And if a league don't want to let them back in at the same level, they've got to start all the way back down again at Sunday League football, work their way back to Saturday League and up the leagues again,
That's
like
very.
AFC Wimbledon had to. And it took them 20 years. So we don't want to see that.
Yeah,
Yes, I'd
no
agree
one
with
does.
you, Jordy, about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's gonna happen potentially myself, because 5 months is too much time. Surely,
Mm.
Premier League and EFL, they have to act sooner. But what I was saying is, you need to have solid data to say, okay, I'm pausing the league, I'm putting them through all these problems, but I'm saving lives. But you do know for sure that this is not the case. People can still be infected, whilst football is sort of temporarily suspended. Bec-
Yeah, and I
uh,
go back to my point. Like, the only way you get out of that is that you test all the players, all the backroom staff, and anyone that has to be at the stadium between every fixture. And if you test positive, you can't train and you can't play.
yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
there
they
is a way. There is a way to save football. It's just I don't know why no one is doing anything. But you can manage it. You can surely manage it and quarantine players in hotel rooms.
I think it is possible. I think that's the thing. Is you are now reaching the point where it is possible. South Korea are proving that point. Iran are proving that point, and are actually kind of forward thinking about all of this. I think in some countries where it's out of control, pretty much like the United States and Brazil, it would be ridiculous to bring it back because the levels of infection are just so much higher than anywhere. You'd be silly to kind of try at this point. But most of the world, where we're getting past that curve, even though we don't have the vaccines, like I say, if you've got a strict testing regime between each fixture, then you know who's got it and you know who hasn't, who can play and who can't.
Hmm.
And then at least you've got the TV rights and the merchandise coming in. And then football clubs can start to move forward. Eventually, fans are allowed back in. Because I guarantee you, when this is all said and done, when we are allowed back to our football clubs, fans will be going there selling out the worst games of football. 0-0 games between Stoke and Burnley will have 40,000 people at
Yeah,
them
I'm
just
sure.
because it's back.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Okay, cool. We sort of touched on Bundesliga and Premier League. We know. By the way, Premier League is coming back, right? We did say that.
It is, as far as I'm aware, the problem is it looks like it's going to be held at neutral grounds. The argument from the teams that are lower in the table is that it will have a negative impact on their finances and a negative impact on their
There's
kind of
always
morale and ability to
yeah.
get through the division. So what it looks like is the Premier League will be back with no relegation. So we'll just finish the season basically, and Champions League's places will be decided. Title will be decided, even though it's Liverpool's. But everyone at the bottom, they're just playing for fun, really. That's all there is in it.
Well,
And
not
next season will be
necessarily. Not necessarily, dude. I suppose
well. If this,
in the bottom part of this league, yes, but there are still spots to compete for Champions League, Europa League. I'm sure Sheffield United will, go full throttle to gain Europa League spot. United are going full throttle not to lose their whatever. They're 6, right? I think. Well, yeah, I agree with you. If there is no relegation, then on the bottom part of the league, it's just we know we're not going to reach. There is no difference between what 8th and 20th, I suppose.
yeah, exactly. But apart from there will be a little bit more in terms of winnings, financial money that you earn, but it's more for pride, And I think that does matter to the players more than players get credit for. For instance, like my team, like West Ham, like 27 points. If they somehow turned it around and ended it on 45 points because they just had a good run, because there's basically no injuries and the squad played well to the best of their ability, won 5-6 games and a couple of draws.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be well happy with that, especially with the fact that there's been no football. To go from having this crap season to having this kind of mini season where we're good and we don't win trophies anyway, that would have felt like a good achievement as a fan. So I think everyone would just be happy to have it back.
Well, I'll tell you someone who is actually happy. Karen Brady.
Oh, yeah.
She got what she wanted, but yeah, so did Liverpool. And every other football fan. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I have nothing else to add. Obviously, you already know Netherlands and France. They have already announced their season null and void. One has declared the champion, one hasn't, and everyone witnessed the reactions to these decisions. All right, that's
down the rabbit hole.
yeah. Bundesliga and Premier League are coming back potentially. That's what I want. Cool. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I certainly did. I learned a lot. And we will see you soon in another video about the transfers, right, Holly? Am I correct? And
so next up on the channel is just covering the transfer window, kind of still linked to COVID-19 and the money, the more money side of it, rather than like, is football coming back? It's just like, well, what happens to the contracts? What kind of money do football clubs have? And then let's see how it plays out. All the confirmed transfers, all the rumours, and just get your Asian football news right here on Classico East.
Cool. Thank you very much. See you soon.